Vienna, 1930. An old woman sits in a palace on the Kärntner Ring. The journalists have been coming for years. They want to know what really happened between her and the emperor. What she saw. What she carried with her all those decades. The woman says the same thing every time. I am no Pompadour. Nothing more. Her name is Katharina Schratt. And she saw more than almost anyone at the Viennese court. There is a story almost everyone knows. An emperor, an actress, a great silent love. But the real story is more complicated. And it doesn't begin with the emperor. It begins with his wife. But first, the woman it's really about. Katharina Schratt is born on September 11, 1853, in Baden, near Vienna. Her father deals in paper and office supplies. A solid, middle-class world. No stage, no spotlight, no applause. But Katharina wants all of it, from the very start. At 6, she sneaks into the Baden theater to appear as an extra. Her parents send her to a convent school in Cologne as punishment. It's a mistake. At the school, she memorizes entire plays and performs them in secret for the other girls. When the headmistress asks her father to collect his daughter, it's clear the theater has her. At 17, her first debut. Then Berlin, Vienna, New York. On November 10, 1883, she stands on the stage of the Burgtheater for the first time. A colleague notes, no depth, no inner life. Vienna loves her anyway. She plays women with warmth, with humor, with both feet on the ground. Exactly what the Hofburg lacks. In the audience sits a man who never applauds, the emperor. But it's not the first time. December 1873. Franz Joseph sits with Elizabeth in the Stadttheater. On the stage, a young actress. Then, nothing happens for 10 years, until 1883, when Schratt joins the Burgtheater. Franz Joseph misses no performance in which she appears. It gets noticed, above all by his wife. Elizabeth of Austria is by now one of the unhappiest women in Europe. The marriage has been a facade since the 1860s. She travels for months, sometimes for years. Corfu, Madeira, Hungary, England. Franz Joseph wrote her letter after letter. How boundlessly he loved her, despite everything. She left those letters unanswered. What most books leave out, there is a reason for this rupture. Historians suspect he had passed a venereal disease to his wife. It isn't proven, but it would explain why Elizabeth never truly came back. It is a betrayal she never forgave. At the same time, he has a mistress, Anna Nahowski. 14 years, a vow of silence, money. One of her children is named Franz Joseph. Elizabeth knows all of it, and she draws her conclusions. Nahowski is too risky for her, too uncontrolled. Elizabeth needs a solution, and then she sees how Franz Joseph goes to the Burgtheater. Again and again. Always when a certain woman is on the stage. Elizabeth acts at once. In 1885, she invites Schratt to the industrialists' ball. For the first time, Franz Joseph and Schratt speak at length. It is no accident. It is a move on the board. In 1886, Elizabeth commissions the court painter Heinrich von Angeli to paint a portrait of Schratt as a gift for the emperor. She arranges the studio visits so that all three meet by chance. The plan works. Franz Joseph learns that Schratt spends the summer at the How far is it from the lake? Will you already be there in early June? Elizabeth registers this. She sends Schratt an emerald ring. The enclosed letter thanks Schratt for sitting for the portrait and expresses Elizabeth's great joy over the so very valuable gift. It isn't the portrait she means. It's the actress. Elizabeth invents a term for what Schratt now is. The friend. Not a lover. Not a mistress. The friend. The word does everything at once. It gives the thing a name. It makes her respectable. And it makes her invisible. Nahowski disappears. She too is paid for her silence. Elizabeth's plan has worked. She is free. Katharina Schratt is now part of a construction she did not design. She knows it, but she stays. Why? One can only guess. Franz Joseph buys her a villa on the Gloriettegasse, 5 minutes from Schönbrunn. A second one in Bad Ischl, right next to his summer residence. He pays her gambling debts, again and again, over 1,000 letters. My dear, good friend. He writes to her about intimate details one does not share with a platonic friend. But the triangle only works as long as all three play their part. January 30th, 1889. Count Hoyos arrives at the Hofburg. He comes from Mayerling. Crown Prince Rudolf is dead. With him, his 17-year-old mistress, Mary Wetzera. Hoyos goes first to the Empress. Elizabeth is shattered, but she goes straight to Schratt. In this moment, Schratt is not the Emperor's friend. She is the Empress's support. The three stand together in the room when Franz Joseph enters. He does not yet understand what has happened. Then they tell him. His first words, "For God's sake, how is one to tell the people?" Schratt says nothing. She is a witness. She will always remain a witness. September 1898. Elizabeth is murdered in Geneva. An anarchist on the street. A file into the heart. The Empress dies without knowing she is wounded. And with her dies something Schratt only now begins to grasp. Elizabeth was the architect of the whole construction. Without her, Schratt is suddenly nothing defined. Not a wife, not a widow, not a lady of the court. The court turns against her. Lord Chamberlain Montenuovo intrigues openly. Marie Valerie, Franz Joseph's daughter, refuses all contact. Schratt resigns her contract. At 47, she leaves the stage for good. Out of spite, she stays away from Vienna and the Emperor for a whole year. In 1902, she returns once more, as a guest. She plays the Empress Maria Theresa. Vienna understands the illusion at once. The scandal is great. Franz Joseph never enters the Burg Theater again. Perhaps that says it all. The relationship continues, but cooled, less taken for granted. What Elizabeth had held together now holds by habit alone. And by the silence, both of them have agreed to keep. 1914. Franz Ferdinand is shot. The World War begins. An empire breaks apart. Schratt is there. She sits with the Emperor when he cannot sleep. She stays silent to the outside world. November 21st, 1916. Franz Joseph lies dying at Schönbrunn. Schratt waits in the next room, not as family, not as a lady of the court. As what, exactly? Karl I leads her by the arm to the deathbed. She lays 2 white roses in the hands of the dead man. The roses go with him into the grave. Then comes the will. 34 years, over 1,000 letters. Mayerling, Elizabeth's murder. A war that destroyed the empire. Her name is missing. She turns to Karl I. He refuses. Katharina Schratt had outlived Elizabeth. She had outlived Franz Joseph. She had outlived the empire. But the construction Elizabeth had placed her into, that she did not outlive. Katharina Schratt withdraws into her palace on the Kärntner Ring. Every day she goes to the imperial crypt, to the grave of Franz Joseph, to the grave of Elizabeth, to the grave of Rudolf. She knows this family better than any historian. In the 1930s, the journalists come. Publishers offer astronomical sums for her memoirs. She refuses. I am no Pompadour. On April 17, 1940, Katharina Schratt dies at the age of 86. In the Vienna of the Third Reich, alone in her palace. What was between her and Franz Joseph? She took it to the grave. But the greater secret had never been hers. It belonged to Elizabeth, the woman who chose a successor for her own husband, and made Schratt the one who knew. The triangle had a beginning and an end, just no confession.